I had a very bizarre stalkerish experience with a classmate several years ago in college. One day, we were put into groups for a project and thinking nothing of it. We all exchanged numbers with each other. In the following weeks, I started to get very bad vibes from one of the group members. At first, I had thought he was just a normal guy, but as time went on, things got really creepy. We text like normal classmates or group mates. We texted casually and made small talk outside of the group project. He added me to Facebook, and I accepted his request. Fast forward, I started to notice how the guy constantly stares at me from across the room, with this very thirsty look on his face, and makes remarks about how pretty I am. The professor would be lecturing. I would look over my shoulder to see him staring at me with a disgusting look of desperation on his face. Also, the guy had bright blue eyes and looked like he barely slept, so that combo made him look even creepier, especially when I'd caught him staring at me like that. I started keeping my responses to him dry and only reached out to my other classmates regarding the project. This behavior continued for the duration of the class. Finally, when the class was over, I decided to block his number cold and delete him off Facebook. I thought I was done with him, but I was wrong. The next day, I get a friend request from a very creepy account with a creepy-looking man on the profile riding a carousel horse. It was odd and literally gave me chills. Then a few weeks following the incident, I started getting calls from an unknown number. I picked up and said hello, only to be greeted by a male voice that sounded like they were trying to make it deep on purpose when I pick it up. They told me they were outside my house and watching me. I immediately froze, my heart pounding. Then they went on to make sexual remarks and that I should undress, etc. I realized then that the voice sounded very familiar. I knew without a doubt that it was my classmate I had blocked, but unfortunately at the time, I didn't know how I could prove it. I had called the cops and also threatened to call the cops thereafter. These calls went on for a year until I finally changed my number. I haven't heard from him since, but years later, there was a break-in at my house where I had to call the cops again. To this day, I don't know if the incidences were related or not. I'm just glad that he's gone. The sheer terror I felt from those calls. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a history of rape or sexual abuse. Remember the early days of the web? AOL software upgrades arrived in the mail on a CD-ROM. Family members shouted across the house at one another if an incoming call on the landline interrupted the painstaking 10 minutes it took to get from the America Online sign and screen to hearing, "You've got mail," reverberate throughout the room. Recipients of multicolored chain emails, a serial killer camping out, and a young girl shower and killing her guard dog, truly pondered the threat against their luck for the next 7 years if they didn't abide by the message's commands to forward it on to 7 friends. Better not risk it, we told ourselves, as we quickly typed out 7 email addresses in the recipient field, and finding everything there was to know about a person online, something anyone can do today with a few keystrokes and a credit card. Was a lot harder to do back then, but not for Corey. I was 15 years old. At the time, ambiguous and exotic usernames like Pina Colada 33 or Burnett Baby 87 were all the rage. Naive as we early screen time pioneers were, this anonymity was smart. Social media was in its infancy. Zanja was the go-to heaven for teens and tweens to vent their angst while informing the world they were currently listening to Screaming Infidelities by Dashboard Confessional. Everyone was friends with Tom on MySpace, AIM didn't exist as a standalone messenger service just yet, so it was MSN Messenger or bust. But if you had a true AOL account like I did, you were set up with all you need to discover this new hyper-connected, free-for-all world of the early 2000s World Wide Web. Your own email inbox, a new page to create a personal profile, access to chat rooms on just about any topic or hobby you could possibly imagine. It was exhilarating until it was terrifying. One afternoon, I jumped into one of these chat rooms. ASL, age, sex, location. 16, female, Boston. I watched the usual exchange between two strangers scroll across my screen for several minutes, hoping to find my opportunity to finally chime in and introduce myself. Ultimately, I got bored and left the chat without typing a word. Bing! An instant message appeared on my screen. "You didn't say anything," the message read. "Why not?" "Who is this?" I responded, confused by the username I didn't recognize. "I'm Corey," he responded. "I'm 16, 8th grade in Lake Charles, Louisiana. What about you?" 16 in 8th grade? Yikes, and yet I was intrigued. "So, did you get held back twice or what?" I teased. And so the conversation began. We struck up a brief online friendship that afternoon. He shared a photo, freckle-faced, brown hair, nothing I'd rate above a 5 on Hot or Not. Yet, despite the friendly list, I refused to tell him where I was from or anything personal about me beyond my first name and age. I knew little about the dangers of the internet, but I wasn't dumb either. My username was a fruity drink and some numbers, right? Safe enough, I figured. For background, I didn't have one of those AOL user profiles. Its standard features include a profile picture of a questionnaire to fill out fun facts about yourself. My photo was one of me with several friends, with no indication of which one was me whatsoever. A few days later, Corey messaged me out of the blue. "You're beautiful." "What?" "Brunettes with green eyes." "Man," he responded. Somehow, despite my photo containing 3 other friends, he'd accurately identified me. "I would love to see you sometime." I felt my skin prick. I politely told him something to the effect of "that will not be possible," and quickly logged off. Friday the following week, I was sleeping over at my best friend's house. He was logged in to my account in the background as we thirstily browsed cute guys on Hot or Not. Bing! "Who's messaging you?" my friend asked. I knew it. It was Corey. "Hey, you live in Houston. Your parents are James and Sarah Miller, and you live at 1655 South Brand. City names and addresses obviously changed and is fabricated for this story. You know, that feeling when you're on a roller coaster during a sharp drop and your heart jumps into your throat? That was that moment. Fortunately, we managed to find that AOL did, in fact, have a block user feature that night. That was it. So long, creepy 16-year-old middle schooler with scarily good online sleuthing skills. It didn't last long. The next day, a screen name similar to Corey's messaged me. He had another account. I quickly blocked it. This happened 5 more times. I finally went dark for a while. Sure, I missed the thrill of seeing the yellow envelope appear in my virtual mailbox, but it was better than the threat of being harassed by Corey. A few weeks later, I got home from school. My little sister was a baby at the time, 14 years my junior, so she had a nanny who stayed with her during the day while my parents were at work. When I walked through the door of the kitchen, she handed the phone to me. "It's for you," she said, with a quizzical look on her face. "Who is it?" "I really don't know. Some boy with a twang in his voice. Sounds like he's from East Texas or Louisiana." Oh, God. "Hello?" finally muttered into the phone. "Hey, pretty thing, it's Corey. Hey, so my friends and I are all into the show Jackass. We're thinking of making a trip over to Houston, doing some pranks around town next week. How hilarious would it be if we surprised you at your front door?" I choked out a nervous laugh. I mumbled an excuse about having a quiz the next day and quickly hung up. For the next few weeks, I slept with a knife under my mattress. I was absolutely terrified. I wake up to this Lake Charles stranger boy on the balcony outside my window. How did he get my phone number? But just as soon as he'd invaded my sense of security, he seamlessly disappeared. No instant messages, no uninvited calls to my house. The knife finally went back into its respective kitchen drawer. 2 months passed and it felt gloriously safe until the phone rang the first week of summer break. "Hi," the voice said curtly. "Who is this?" I politely demanded. "It's me, Corey." Let me be clear. This wasn't the same voice I had heard 2 months ago. That voice was dripping in southern syrup. It was young and full of mischief. This new voice was different. It was cold. It lacked any discernible accent. It was older. I was speaking to a grown man. "I'm sorry I haven't been able to talk to you," he hurriedly blurted. Why did he sound rushed? I feel terrible, but the police came to my house. They took my computers away from me. I can't say why, but don't worry, I'll be in Houston soon. Click. That was the last day I used that fruity username. I deleted the account and created a new one. I embarrassingly told my parents I'd made a huge mistake, despite having shared nothing that could have easily revealed my personal identity. Even if I had, the threat back then wasn't what it is now. This was nearly 20 years ago. People simply didn't have the online presence that they do today. As a teenager with no social media yet, I was virtually a ghost. But still, I was convinced I was somehow culpable for this stranger. This man, a predator who clearly had advanced knowledge for computers and the internet, singling me out and making his mission to learn everything about me through whatever means possible. He was determined to get to me. I'm only grateful that even at 15, I knew better than to trust that freckle-faced kid from an online chat room had fully benign intentions. 2 decades later, I still wonder how Corey ended up, hopefully, behind bars. Notice, I'm female. Also, I'm not a native speaker, so correct me if I make grammar mistakes. This is my true story from 2019 and 2020, when I started going to high school. I was 16 at the time. I met Tom, my classmate, who was goth. He had his own band and all. Everyone considered him as the type of person who is dangerous, though he was the sweetest person I've ever met, so I didn't really get that kind of vibe from Tom. He's a guitarist. I just assumed that if my friend was sweet, his friends must be sweet too, which in most cases was the truth. Tom was shorter than me. I'm 5'7", so it's not that uncommon in my case, and had really long blonde hair, and because of that, many people has misgendered him. He was nice and funny, though he wasn't exactly the type of person with whom I'm hanging out with. Most of my friends are loud extroverts with a lot of energy and even more memes saved on their phone. Me and my friend and Tom was going to the same school, so when I was talking with my friend, Tom was usually there too. And sometime me and Tom started spending more time alone, and he somehow became one of my friends. That I have told him a lot of times about my crush, so he definitely knew I was interested in someone else. Time flew by, and my best friend started noticing that Tom is evidently interested in me. I just laughed it off and didn't think much of it. Me and Tom? Oh, come on, guys. Though I didn't believe them. I wanted to make sure that Tom knows what kind of intentions I have towards him. So despite the fact that I'm a really cuddly and friendly person, I tried not to show him so much attention anymore. Months flew by, and February came, despite the fact that my friends have told me about some red flags, that he was watching me, that he magically appeared everywhere we went. He followed us around, etc. I, again, so naive and dumb, thought that it was established for good what we were. Just friends. No need to say my friends were not big fans of him. So when he invited me shopping after school, I was like, yeah, sure. Day before, he had texted me about how excited he was for us going out and offered me a lift home after. I have told him that, no, I'm okay with the bus. I live in the next town, not too near, not too far. He insisted. He was so persistent in giving me a lift home that my naive, though aggressive and assertive ass texted him, "Bitch, you right I give you a ride home on one more time? We're not going anywhere." So he finally stopped. I really hate guys who don't take no for an answer, and it was definitely the case here. The meeting was nice, but weird. Around 15 minutes after we got to the shopping center, I knew he wanted something more. I'm naive, not blind. So after some awkward time, I said, I gotta go. And I went to the bus stop. He wanted to walk me there. And that was about it. At least that's what I thought. He got on the bus with me, because apparently he was going the same way. I knew that he had lived in the other part of the city. Maybe he needed to do something over there. Though I knew that something was off. So I got off the bus a few stops before mine. And I called my mom. He got off too. I asked him why is he following me. And he said that he wants to make sure I'm getting home safely. Yeah, what the fuck, dude? Do you think it's a fucking romantic? I told him to go home, but he was persistent. I told him that yesterday I texted him that I'm okay with coming home alone, and he said, "But you are coming home by yourself. What's the problem?" Now literally scared and really uncomfortable. I have read way too many true stories on Let's Not Me and creepy encounters too. I got that feeling on my spine that his intentions are not pure. It was getting dark and I was alone with him in the middle of nowhere. And he started to make his move. In this moment, I started being more annoyed of him than scared. I'm a tall, sporty girl with a fucking blue belt and had boxing classes. So if he tried something, I would beat the shit out of him. At least my voice is really loud and I scream louder than an ambulance. Then I remembered my dangerous meeting with some old creep who wanted to do you know what. He failed, don't worry. I was so frozen. First 10 seconds I couldn't move or even make a noise. So I decided it wasn't necessarily the best place to turn him down. So we just waited silently. I would definitely feel more safe alone than with him. He started touching my back and hair, etc. And when I asked him to stop, he said, "Aw, you're just so cute when you get angry." Dude, no means no. I've told him that, and he started making a monologue about how girls also say no, but they mean yes. No, they don't. And then it was so dark that I had to turn my flashlight on. He asked me if I was cold. I said that no, but apparently we're talking about a guy who don't take no for an answer. And so he hugged me tightly. I tried to push him away, but then I remembered that night when I was almost you know what, and again froze. I felt him sniffing my hair and neck. His hands were tightly hugging me. He was way stronger than I thought. I felt a slow breath on my skin. "You really are perfect," he said after a while with a changed voice. It was deep. I felt like a rabbit caught by a fox. I laughed hysterical and started crying, but he was still holding and sniffing me. When my mom came, I ran to her car. She has thankfully parked away from the bus stop so he couldn't ask himself to my home, even if he wanted. When I got home, I started crying my eyes out. Thought it was over. After that, I have definitely limited acquaintance with him. He still was a friend of a friend, so I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. And then lockdown came, and so I thought that problem was solved. Notice that I have alarmed my mom about this, but she said that he just likes you and, oh, come on, boys will be boys. So I was alone with my problem. He was calling me a few times per day. When I asked him why, no, I wasn't answering the calls. He texted me that he wanted to talk because he missed my voice. As a dumb bitch I thought that ignoring him will make him stop. And surprisingly, it worked. At least the text and call stopped. When we came back in September, he was acting like, in September a year ago, a pure, nice, shy dude. My goth friend was expelled from school at the time, and we kind of lost contact, so I couldn't talk about Tom with him. Maybe Tom just acts this way. I don't know. I know some clingy people who would totally do the same things as Tom, but with the purest intentions. Yes, I am a naive bitch. And then the lunch break came. After everyone from our table left, only me and Tom stayed. I eat rather slow, and he was drinking his juice. It's a nice thing we finished the lessons at the same time at Thursdays, he said. We can hang out then. Maybe go ice skating when the winter will come. Have some sushi or... What? First of all, my school has a private lesson plan for each class. So you can't just check it on the website. The teacher needs to send it to you. I didn't give it to him, so how the fuck did he know? Second of all, I love ice skating. I've told him that a year ago, the day we met. How did he remember? And finally, I never told him that I like sushi. Why would he ask me to go there if he wasn't sure I liked it? A lot of people hate sushi. Even I eat it on occasionally with my friends, and then it hits me. My friend told me that he was following us. He knew I liked sushi because he saw me eating it. Probably several times. Maybe I've told him after all, just forgot. I tried to make an excuse for him, but I started to feel so scared I couldn't move. Haha, yeah, I answered awkwardly, trying to make my voice sound normal. How do you know? He started to look a little bit uncomfortable and changed the subject. Okay, this is way too suspicious. I have told about it to my best friends. One of them, Hannah, said, "Oh my God, yes, I remember now." After that, I thought that she, for some reason, has sent him it, so I felt relieved. I have met him today at the principal office. He was taking our class plan. I thought it was pretty weird, too. I wanted to tell you this since you guys are friends and all, but I forgot. Sorry. What? Okay, now, if he wanted to be friends, he would just ask me about it. And if he knew that I wouldn't give it to him, why was he so persistent? Okay, we need to get this clear. My friends thought the same. I confronted him a few days later. I have told him that we cannot be more than friends, ever. I like someone else. I don't have romantical feelings towards him, etc., etc. After my monologue, he was just standing there. After a while, he said, "I knew about it." He looked at me. "You did like my touch, though. I saw that you liked it. So why are you acting like this?" I told him that I didn't. It made me feel very uncomfortable. That even then I tried to push him away, but I couldn't. And that if a girl says no, it means no. "Well," he said, "it seems like I am stronger than you after all. Good thing to know. Well, be happy that I won't use it on you. You're too pretty." We just stood there, me in shock. him just looking at my reaction, and then my next class started, so I went away. When I've looked back, he was still standing there, with his blank expression on his face. Then he looked up, our eyes met. He seemed sad and angry. After that, we stopped talking for a while, though I could see him in very weird places staring at me, like in a building where I trained karate, or my bus stop. He never took this bus stop. He lives in a completely different direction. But also, this stopped after some time. But here my so-called best friend Hannah turns in. She became friends with him, knowing what kind of relationship me and him had. I was trying to tell her to stop asking him to hang around us, but she didn't care. Also, every time that our choir needed music help, she texted him to help us. Oh, come on, Asia. It's my name. He's so good with guitar. He can totally help us. The second lockdown had came, and I don't know what to expect when I'll come back. The worst part is I know that he's a good person. He will get over his feelings, at least I hope so. But I think it's just cruel for Hannah to ask him to hang out with me and her, because then it looks like I asked her to do it, to play with his feelings or use him. I know that she likes him, also not in a romantical way as far as I know. But come on, girl, don't do this to me. Can't you hang out with him alone? I don't know what to do. I will also keep updating if something happens, which I highly doubt so. We haven't spoken in half a year. He acts normal. We texted just once to share each other experience about musical I have recommended him in September. But I'm happy I had ended it before something bad happened. And I hope that nothing bad will happen too. Tom, I know that we will meet again, so let's just meet as normal friends, with nothing more to it.